Your soulmate refused to sign the final divorce order. Then one secret witness appeared. My beloved child. Your soulmate was sitting across from a final divorce order that required only one signature, but when the pen was placed in front of them, their hands stopped. Everyone in that room expected the marriage to be finished within minutes. The papers had already been reviewed. The decision seemed irreversible. Yet your soulmate quietly pushed the document away and said, "I'm not signing this." Their attorney immediately asked what had changed, because just hours earlier they had seemed prepared to let everything go. Your soulmate didn't answer. Instead, they kept staring toward the closed door as though they were waiting for someone. Then their phone vibrated with a message containing only 4 words, "The witness is here." And suddenly, the refusal to sign no longer looked emotional. It looked planned. But who could possibly appear this late and change something that everyone believed was already settled? A few minutes later, footsteps stopped outside the room. Your soulmate stood before anyone even touched the door handle. The strange part was their expression. There was fear there, yes, but underneath it was something stronger. Relief. The door opened, and someone entered carrying a thin envelope and an old phone. Nobody recognized the person immediately, but your soulmate did. They whispered, "You actually came." The witness placed the envelope on the table and said they had stayed silent because they were afraid of what would happen if the truth surfaced. Now, however, the divorce order was about to make that silence permanent. Don't skip, because what happened next changed the entire meaning of your soulmate's hesitation. The witness explained that months earlier, they had accidentally seen something involving your soulmate, the separation, and a private conversation that was never supposed to reach you. But instead of explaining everything, they unlocked the old phone and asked one chilling question: "Before I play this, are you certain you want everyone here to hear it?" Your soulmate looked at the unsigned papers and slowly nodded. The witness pressed play. At first, there was only background noise. Then a familiar voice could be heard discussing the relationship as though its ending had already been decided long before your soulmate understood what was happening. Your soulmate's face changed instantly. They had suspected someone had interfered, but suspicion was nothing compared with hearing actual words. Then another voice entered the recording, and your soulmate suddenly reached toward the phone. "Wait. Play that again." Everyone became silent. The witness replayed several seconds, and your soulmate whispered something nobody expected: "That person knew about you." About you. Not merely the divorce. Not merely their marriage. You. Stay till the end, because the witness still hadn't opened the envelope, and apparently the recording was only the beginning. Inside that envelope was something your soulmate had never seen before. Something explaining why your name had secretly become part of this divorce long before those final papers ever reached the table. The envelope remained untouched for several seconds, because your soulmate suddenly seemed afraid of what opening it might confirm. The witness finally slid it across the table and said, "You deserve to know why everything changed so quickly." Inside were copies of messages, dates, and one handwritten note that immediately caught your soulmate's attention. Your name appeared near the top. Their eyes froze there. According to the witness, someone close to the situation had learned about your connection much earlier than anyone admitted, and from that moment, quiet pressure began building behind the scenes. Conversations were twisted. Important messages never reached their destination. Small misunderstandings were allowed to grow until they looked impossible to repair. Your soulmate looked up and asked the question everyone was thinking. Why would anyone go this far just to keep us apart? The witness hesitated, because the answer involved someone your soulmate had trusted completely. Then came the detail that changed the atmosphere. The witness revealed that the divorce had not simply moved forward because the relationship had failed. Someone had repeatedly encouraged your soulmate to believe there was nothing left worth saving while privately telling another story to everyone else. Your soulmate began remembering moments that had never made sense: the sudden coldness, the unexplained warnings, the strange insistence that signing quickly would be best for everyone. Now those moments were connecting. But one question remained: what did any of this have to do with you? The witness picked up the old phone again and opened a message dated weeks before the divorce papers were prepared. It contained a photograph. Your soulmate leaned closer, and their face went pale. "Where did you get this?" they whispered. The witness answered, "That's exactly why I came tonight." The photograph itself seemed ordinary until the witness enlarged one corner. There, partially hidden behind the main image, was something your soulmate recognized immediately. It proved that a certain person had been somewhere they repeatedly claimed they had never been, and the date placed them there on the exact night an important message concerning you mysteriously disappeared. Your soulmate stood up, no longer willing to treat the situation as coincidence. "So someone knew," they said quietly. "Someone knew what I was trying to say before I ever got the chance to say it." The witness nodded, but warned them not to jump to conclusions yet. Something huge was waiting for them. There was another recording on that phone, and unlike the first one, this conversation mentioned you directly. But just as the witness prepared to play it, your soulmate noticed the name attached to the audio file, and whispered, "No. That can't be who I think it is." Your soulmate stared at that name as though the room had suddenly disappeared around them. It belonged to someone who had repeatedly claimed to support them through the separation, someone who had listened to their fears, offered advice, and quietly encouraged them to finish the divorce without looking backward. The witness pressed play. A calm voice filled the room, saying that your soulmate could never be allowed to discover what had really happened between you two. Then came a sentence that made your soulmate grip the edge of the table: "If they ever speak directly, everything we've done falls apart." The recording ended there. Your soulmate looked toward the witness and demanded, "Everything you've done? What does that mean?" But the witness had one more piece of information, and this one was far more personal. Months earlier, the witness explained, your soulmate had apparently written something meant specifically for you. Not a casual message. Not a goodbye. It was a deeply personal confession explaining what they truly felt and what they wanted to do before the divorce became final. Your soulmate immediately shook their head. "I sent that." The witness answered softly, "No. You thought you did. According to the evidence, that message never reached you." Someone intercepted it, then allowed both sides to believe the silence that followed was intentional. Suddenly, your soulmate understood why certain things had felt unfinished. They had interpreted your silence as rejection while you may never have known there was anything to answer. "Stay till the end, because the witness then revealed something even stranger. A response connected to that missing confession existed somewhere, and your soulmate had never seen it either. The attorney asked the witness to explain carefully, and another document came out of the envelope. It contained a timestamp, a delivery record, and several lines that had been deliberately removed from an earlier version. Your soulmate read them once. Then again. Their eyes filled with disbelief. Whatever those lines contained, they destroyed one assumption that had influenced every decision afterward. So I almost signed away everything because I believed something that wasn't true, your soulmate whispered. The witness nodded, but then pointed toward the final page. There was a second signature beneath the record, one belonging to the person who had handled the missing communication. Your soulmate recognized it instantly. Yet before anyone could confront that person, the witness gave a final warning: that signature isn't the biggest secret. You need to ask why they were so desperate to make sure this divorce became final tonight. And when your soulmate heard the reason, they stopped looking at the divorce papers and looked directly at your name. The reason was buried in a document your soulmate had never been shown. The witness placed it beside the unsigned divorce order and pointed to a date only 3 days away. According to what they had uncovered, once the divorce became final, a private agreement connected to the separation would automatically take effect, and after that deadline, challenging what had happened would become far more complicated. Suddenly, the urgency made sense. Someone had not been pushing your soulmate to sign quickly because they wanted closure. They needed that signature before certain questions could be asked. Your soulmate looked through the pages again and noticed your name referenced beside an old communication record. Why am I only seeing this now? They demanded. The witness answered quietly, because you weren't supposed to see it until it was too late. That sentence changed your soulmate completely. The sadness disappeared from their face and was replaced by determination. They began asking about every missing message, every unexplained conversation, every moment when someone had told them you had moved on or wanted nothing more to do with them. The witness confirmed something devastating: several of those claims could not be verified. Some had apparently come from the same person whose voice was on the recording. Your soulmate leaned back, remembering how many decisions had been made based on information delivered through someone else instead of directly from you. Then they asked, did they ever actually hear those words from you? The witness shook their head. No. And that single answer opened an even larger possibility. What if the distance between you and your soulmate had been built around assumptions neither of you created? But there was still one mystery the witness had avoided. Your soulmate noticed and finally asked, why did you wait until tonight? The witness lowered their eyes and admitted they had originally been afraid to get involved. Then, earlier that evening, someone contacted them unexpectedly and demanded that every remaining copy of the recordings be destroyed before the divorce was signed. That demand frightened them enough to finally come forward. Don't skip, because your soulmate immediately asked to see the message. The witness handed over the phone. Your soulmate read it silently, then stopped on one particular line: once the order is signed, they can never go back to the person they really wanted. Your soulmate whispered your name under their breath. But underneath that message was another one sent only minutes later, and this time, the sender revealed exactly what they believed would happen if your soulmate ever discovered the full truth about you. The second message was colder than anything your soulmate expected. It said, if they learn what really happened, they'll go looking for that person immediately. Your soulmate read the sentence twice, then slowly placed the phone on the table. Nobody needed to explain who that person meant. It was you. For months, your soulmate had been led to believe that returning to you would only reopen old wounds, that you had already chosen distance, and that whatever connection remained existed only in their imagination. But whoever sent these messages clearly believed the opposite. They were afraid of what would happen if your soulmate learned the truth. And suddenly your soulmate asked the witness something nobody else had considered. What exactly did they know about how this person felt about me? The witness hesitated before revealing another saved conversation. This one happened shortly after your soulmate's missing confession disappeared. Someone could be heard saying that you had never received the full truth and that keeping both of you from speaking directly was becoming increasingly difficult. Then another voice responded, just keep them believing the silence means rejection. Your soulmate closed their eyes. That one sentence explained too much. Every unanswered question. Every night they wondered why you never responded. Every time they almost reached out but stopped because someone convinced them it would only humiliate them. Now they realized silence had been used as evidence when it may never have meant rejection at all. But one detail remained unexplained. If someone worked this hard to separate you, what were they protecting? The witness finally opened a hidden folder on the old phone. Inside was a photograph of another envelope, one addressed to your soulmate but never delivered. The handwriting looked unfamiliar, yet the date immediately mattered. It had been written before the divorce process reached its final stage. Your soulmate asked where the original was. The witness swallowed and said, I know who has it. That answer changed everything, because the person holding that letter was apparently the same person who had been pushing hardest for tonight's signature. Your soulmate stood and pushed the divorce order farther away. Then nobody signs anything until I read that letter. But the witness didn't move. Instead, they revealed one final detail about the envelope. Your name wasn't written on the outside, but according to the person who secretly photographed it, almost every line inside was about you, and the final sentence contained a promise your soulmate was never supposed to discover. For the first time that night, your soulmate stopped asking questions and made a decision. They wanted the original letter brought into that room before anyone discussed the divorce again. The witness made one phone call, speaking so quietly that nobody could hear the response. Then came the surprise. The letter was already nearby. Someone had brought it to the building earlier, expecting the divorce to be completed without complications. Your soulmate's attorney immediately asked who had possession of it, but the witness refused to say until it was physically in their hands. Minutes later, another knock came at the door. A sealed envelope was passed inside. Your soulmate recognized the date written across the front and whispered, "That was the week everything between us changed." They opened it carefully. The first lines described a conversation your soulmate had never known occurred, a conversation about you, their feelings, and the possibility that the marriage was already emotionally finished long before anyone admitted it publicly. But halfway down the page, something became even more disturbing. The writer claimed your soulmate had been intentionally given incomplete information about you because certain people feared what would happen if you two finally spoke without interference. Your soulmate stopped reading and asked, "Who wrote this?" The witness pointed toward the bottom of the final page. There was a signature. Your soulmate recognized the name instantly, and their expression changed from confusion to disbelief. This wasn't some stranger watching from the outside. It was someone who had been close enough to know private details nobody else should have known. Then your soulmate reached the final sentence, the promise they had supposedly never been meant to discover. It read like a warning from someone who had finally regretted staying silent. If the truth ever surfaced, they would personally testify about everything they witnessed. Your soulmate looked up sharply. Then where are they? The witness didn't answer immediately. Instead, they revealed that the person who wrote the letter had disappeared from everyone's conversations shortly afterward and had refused contact for months. But tonight, after hearing the divorce order was about to become final, that person had reached out again. Something huge was waiting for your soulmate, because they weren't merely willing to explain what happened anymore. They were willing to appear in person. And just as your soulmate asked when, footsteps approached outside the room again, followed by a voice your soulmate recognized before the door even opened. The voice outside the door belonged to someone your soulmate had not spoken to in months. When that person entered, your soulmate didn't move. This was the same individual whose signature appeared beneath the letter. The one who had apparently witnessed the earliest moments of interference and then vanished when everything began falling apart. They looked exhausted, almost ashamed, and placed a small folder beside the unsigned divorce order. "I should have come forward sooner," they said. Your soulmate immediately asked the only question that mattered: "Did you know they were keeping information about this person from me?" The witness looked directly at your soulmate and answered, "Yes." "But that isn't the part you're going to have trouble believing." Then they opened the folder and removed a timeline containing dates your soulmate remembered far too well. Those dates matched moments when your soulmate had nearly reached out to you. One was the night they wrote the confession that disappeared. Another was the morning they were told you wanted distance. A third marked the day they finally agreed to proceed with the divorce. Beside every date was a note describing a private conversation happening behind the scenes. Your soulmate followed the timeline until one entry stopped them cold. Someone had apparently known beforehand that your soulmate intended to contact you and had intervened within minutes. "How could they know what I was going to do?" your soulmate asked. The new witness lowered their voice. "Because you were telling someone you trusted." Suddenly, this wasn't simply about intercepted messages. Someone had been receiving your soulmate's private thoughts and using them to stay one step ahead. Your soulmate immediately understood whose name was missing from the timeline. It was the person who had comforted them most during the separation. The same person who repeatedly said, "Don't contact them tonight. Give it time." The same person whose voice appeared in the earlier recording. But before your soulmate could say the name aloud, the witness placed one final item on the table. A printed copy of a message that had supposedly come from you. Your soulmate remembered reading it months earlier. It was one of the main reasons they stopped trying to reach you. The witness pointed toward the technical details printed underneath and said, "This message didn't come from where you were told it came from." Your soulmate's face went completely still. Because if that message wasn't actually yours, then the decision that pushed everything toward divorce had been built on something manufactured, and the witness knew exactly who created it. Your soulmate held the printed message with trembling hands while the witness explained how it had been traced. The wording had looked believable. The timing had been perfect. It arrived immediately after your soulmate considered reaching out to you, making it seem as though you had somehow answered the question they were too afraid to ask. But the message had been created elsewhere and passed through someone.